right, guys. Welcome to Legends of the Wind. I'm Jurri Schenck. This is Alisha Choi. Say hi, Alisha.
Hi.
So we're now, you probably are seeing, we're changing our format to do a weekly live show on Thursdays, 1 p.m. Pacific time. And we're going to be reading a story from Legends of the Wind. This is our first volume we've got. It's in editing stage right now for publication. And we'll have a little conversation about it. So here at Legends of the Wind, we want to help you with your life and see your life through the lens of storytelling. Who are you in your hero's journey? What do you need to do to overcome your challenges? And how do you discover your identity and destiny? And so that's the main heart of our focus of the podcast, is for you to discover your own story. I wrote these stories for children and adults. Alicia's done an amazing job doing illustration and taking the world of the stories and making them visual. And so today we want to invite you. This is an interactive time. If you're online live right now with us, please say hi in the chat. Alicia's monitoring the chat. We want to engage with you and talk to you, find out what's going on, ask any questions you want. We'll do our best to answer, but we just want to touch your heart and figure out who you are in your story. So today's story we're going to be reading is called Cliffhanger, and it's written for a girl named Carissa. And it's very interesting because it's kind of like an Indiana Jones throwback. And it's adventure, it's action, supernatural, and it has to do with, is your dream dead? And so today we're going to read that to you right now. So it's called Cliffhanger. Frazzled, Carissa opened her eyes from an unconscious daze. The wound on her head left a large lump, and she could not remember how she got to this location. Tired and worn, she stood up and looked around her. It was dark. Her torch lay next to her and had almost lost its flame. She picked it up and looked around. Surrounding her were many columns of stone, and she saw she was inside a large catacomb of tombs. Dead, old, and dusty bodies lay in their places in carved graves in the walls. What in the world? She asked. The last thing she could remember was that she was enjoying the day in Italy in the canals of Venice, and the sun was bright and shining. She was full of pleasure because she was free from her responsibilities of school, and the vacation was what she asked for. But while she was having the most delicious coffee at the cafe and waiting for her blind date to arrive, the knock of calling came upon her head. Thunk. And now in the darkness she had awoken to her desire again. She walked forward and explored the tombs and examining the columns. Here were the dead places and the lost places. Here were the places of dreams that had died. And yet this was the place of desire anyway. The smell was musty and stunk. Her faint torch lit the way. She got anxious about the exit. Where is her way out? On one column was a series of inscriptions that were in Latin. With her genius mind and training, she could translate the words, though they were difficult to make out. It was enough to say, "Awake, O sleeper, your desire is the dawn." She mumbled and muttered the words in her mouth as she tried to form the pronunciation. And as she did, the ground rumbled and shook. Something supernatural was happening. It was a small shudder in the ground, and dust crumbled from the ceiling above her. Out of fear that the ceiling would cave in, Carissa stopped her words and held firm onto one rock on the wall. The maze of columns left her confused. Still, she did not know the way of escape. Her declaration was too difficult to utter. Even the simplest whisper of her mouth from the longings of her heart had great power. She saw she must be careful, as even the simplest voice of risk would ignite the heavens. Off in the distance, Carissa peered, and toward great darkness there might be the exit. She thought she could see a glowing purple and blue mist of light far off in the distance. It seemed to swirl a magical color and a small orb of light, but she could not see the floor of the tomb, and the columns didn't allow her to veer to the left and the right, and that didn't help much either. She feared that the place must be unstable because of its age. She thought to herself, "This tomb, this place, it seems too old for me to find my treasure. Has this place all been but forgotten? What and where is the way out? Is there any reward for my exploration?" And yet Carissa saw the blue and purple mist off in the distance, still glowing. It seemed brighter. Carissa took a deep breath and held up her torch and ran. She charged towards the glowing mist and didn't care what would happen. Either she would find her reward and get out of the place of death and dying dreams, or she would end her journey now and know that her risk-taking was her last and final choice. The pursuit of the mist down the columns triggered many booby traps and mechanical functions of the walls. Shrieks and screams from the left and the right cried out as the dreams and their oppressors tried to distract Carissa. Explosions of dust and quick flames burst out. Carissa looked at to her side and saw that they were demons hiding behind the columns. They spat at her, and their mouths had acidic poisons that almost hit her. She increased her speed and ran even harder and jumped side to side as various rock obstacles shot up from the floor of the tomb and tried to hinder her way. The glowing purple mist came closer as she ran. It hung in the doorway, and there seemed to be sunlight from high above that shone down. There was some green moss and vines that hung on the wall. At last, she thought, she would make a way of escape. And just as she cleared the way, a huge rumbling shook the entire tomb, and a huge rock wall slammed the door shut. Her torch went out. Grit and dust filled the air. Carissa choked and gagged as she could not breathe. Even the oxygen seemed to vanish. Next, a sound in her ears whispered. It was the voices of the demonic, laughing and cackling. The words were not clear, and they seemed to mock her and delight in her darkness and despair. Carissa looked out and reached with her arms and tried to push away the oppression, but she seemed to touch nothing. Two dark speckled eyes appeared before her. It was the head demon of the tomb, and he spoke. "You thought you'd escape, didn't you? You thought you would be free. But no, I have you in my clutches." He laughed. Carissa held her breath in fear. The demon moved closer to her face and gripped her throat. She choked and struggled as her back was against the wall. He spoke again. "You explored my territory. You saw all my secrets. You know my ways and sought to expose them. But you have lost." Carissa choked even more as the demon tightened her throat. She thought this was her end. "Now you must sleep," said the head demon. Carissa felt drowsy, and she lost consciousness again. She nodded her head as the grip became tighter. "Yes, I must sleep, sleep. Oh, sleeper, sleep. Oh, oh. Oh, sleeper, sleeper, sleeper," she cried out. Revelation hit Carissa's heart, and a light shined out of her eyes and into the master of the tomb's face. The demon screamed and loosened his grip. Carissa got a crazy and excited look on her face. She cried out in her Latin words, "Awake, O sleeper, awake, O sleeper. Your desire is the dawn." And with those words, a light shone from the cracks on the floor and burst with the seams of the rocks of the wall, and the whole room glowed with an intense and increasing light from the sun. The demons that hid in the dead bodies of dreams could not hide any longer. The light of desire exposed them. They freaked out and cried and scampered like cockroaches caught in the beams of light. Carissa's excitement increased, and her torch was in full of flame. She was back, and her desire was on fire. Carissa chased the demons throughout the tomb. One by one, she pierced the darkness of demons with her torch of desire and disintegrated them into a desperate nothing. Soon the whole room was empty of evil. The dead bodies of dreams and their bones danced and rattled. Life filled them, and they glowed with the same purple and blue mist that she pursued. One by one, the bodies shone out, and they became alive, and in an instant they stood up and left their shelves on the walls. Carissa stood strong and had a small army of dreams in front of her. Together they stood by her side by side and could do whatever she asked. Carissa turned around and faced the huge rock wall that slammed shut and blocked her way. Her army of dreams stood beside her and waited for her next move. She became quiet and put her ear to the rock wall and listened. Carissa closed her eyes and inhaled. And then she opened them and looked straight out and whispered, "Awake, O sleeper, awake!" And the huge wall shot straight up, and bright white light filled the space. What will happen next? What is this new day for Carissa? What desire will awaken in her? Ah, my friends, these are the questions why her stories will always have a cliffhanger. Inceptio. So that's the story. What'd you think, sweetie?
It's pretty amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's an overcoming story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do we have anybody in the chat that has said anything at all?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you are in the chat and you're watching, please say hi. We'd love to connect with you. So when we were discussing this earlier about the story, Alisha pointed out that we have different perspectives of what this story is about. I was kind of looking at what things were in the beginning, but how were you looking at it? Could you describe what you were thinking and how I was different from you?
Well, I mean, the story is, for me, is overcoming story, and then my personality, the past is past. I don't really, I'm more not worry about, but I'm more for future. So for this story, now it's the beginning of something, like either my dream or something that I pursue is starting to happen. So I'm more focusing on that, not, before that my dream was not really happening yet, or I was in struggling situation, or those it's all past. So I'm happy just to go forward. So that's, I'm more focusing on it. And then Jurri was starting from the beginning, that like, oh yeah, the dream is dead, what should we do? And then I said, oh, dream is not dead, it's just starting now. So that's what he and I have a different perspective. But
right.
Yeah.
So for me, I was thinking about the condition of Carissa's character, and that her dreams were in this tomb and they're dead. Alisha was saying they're just asleep. And I think that we were talking about the same thing, but different arcs of the story. And so for me, this story is important because everyone probably has some sort of desire or dream in their heart, but many of us probably are not experiencing those dreams or those fulfillment, and some are. But what do you do if you're not experiencing it? Do you give up? Do you stay stuck in the tomb? I mean, what were you saying about Carissa's character, about that she ran, right? Why?
Yeah.
Go ahead, talk about that.
Well, I believe she probably, trying and trying and trying, and then finally it happens. So that's what I was, thinking. And then when, I know it's difficult when, you feel like as you're stuck, or life is not going anywhere, but still, I believe we still try.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as the story talks about the power of her voice, of Carissa's voice. Like, what is it that you need to speak out? Like, what do I need to speak out for my dreams or our dreams? What is it that you need to speak out? Because there's an effect. The story shows that it caused an earthquake. It caused a reaction. And so there is opposition to your dreams. There's no doubt. But one of, I think, the greatest oppositions is actually yourself. You can be your own worst enemy. But what do you do with that? Well, I think it has to do with speaking what your dream is, declaring what's on your heart, and seeing that before it physically manifests. Like, can you see yourself in the future, and can you see you're looking better there than you are right now? And so, what do you think about opposition, Alisha? You have this supernatural kind of element in the story about a demonic entity that's in this tomb. It's kind of like a supernatural Indiana Jones kind of feeling. How do you look at that when it comes to the things that try to choke you out?
I mean, those things in the life can be many different things, I believe. It's maybe you experienced before that you disappointed at some point, that you believe it's not going to happen, or you see other people doing way better than you that you think you're not qualified,
Right.
or something like that. It's gonna hinder you, but I believe you if you when you have a desire, you keep pursuing, then is at some point, either early in your life or later in your life, it's gonna happen. That's how I believe. And I like the stories that, some celebrities or some, the success people, when they're young, they're either poor, or they people told them you are not talented, or but then they kept trying and trying and trying, and it took them 10 years or 20 years, or how many years, but then they kept trying, even though people around them just didn't support them, or didn't believe in them, but they kept trying, and then they fulfilled what they wanted, and then their dream came true, and they lived the life they wanted to live. So that's that's
Yeah.
how I believe.
Well, I also like piggyback up on what Alisha said about comparison. I mean, everyone's unique, right? I'm different than Alisha completely, and our journey is different than your journey. And if we start looking at what other people are, there are different parts of their paths. And if they're having a time of success or favor or breakthrough, and you're not, that is disappointing. But I think that what the key is to keep going, keep running, like Dory, keep on swimming. And what else in the story can you think of that we could talk about? Is there something about Carissa's character, or the location, or the dead bodies, and that kind of thing? Like, how else can we unpack it?
For those dead bodies, I think that other people, they maybe fail to try, or shouldn't say fail, but they may try, but they couldn't overcome for whatever reason. So the dead bodies, probably the dead dreams from somebody else's. So some of the dreams can be dead, but
well, also, like the key phrase that Carissa's character says is "Awake, O sleeper." Well, those are her dreams she's declaring them to awaken. So I would like to encourage and challenge you. If your dream is asleep, not dead, but asleep, then take the moment and start awakening again. Begin to believe again. Believe in yourself. Believe in the call in your heart, the vision, and cast that vision, not away from you, but into your heart, into your future, and then pursue it. Take steps. Because I think like when we were dating, we had other friends who are single, and people are just sitting back and waiting. Oh, this man will come to me, or this woman will come to me. No, in a relationship, you have to pursue. You have to pursue your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend. And it's the same thing with your destiny. You may have a promise. You may have a guarantee of an outcome, but it still takes action. It still takes a pursuit. It takes sacrifice. I'll even have to say that there are times that you have to sacrifice your dream for the betterment of yourself, but then later it will come back alive, kind of like in this story. So is there, there's no one in the chat, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So we want to encourage you to go to our website, legendsofthewind.com. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, or give us your email for being part of our mailing list for a newsletter. And you can also get a free ebook out of that too, called The Fire Bear. We're in the process of printing and getting our first book printed. It's called Legends of the Wind Volume 1. On the cover here is from the story The Fire Bear. And if you do subscribe to our mailing list on our website, legendsofthewind.com, you can get an audiobook version of that story. You can also go and check out other podcast episodes and see what other stories we've been telling. We have amazing guests, amazing conversations, and all those stories are very rich and powerful, so feel free to read them or watch them and hear the conversation afterward. And please leave your likes and comments with us. We'd love to hear from you. Sweetie, is there anything else that you want to say?
So we should say the next episode is our last episode for the season.
Right.
So just don't miss it.
Yeah, so this one's a very apropos ending of a season. So I always end all my stories with the word inceptio. And in the next episode for our end of a season 1, I'm going to tell a story about what inceptio is all about. So I don't want to reveal just right now what that means, but stay tuned for next week at the same time. And we'll be wrapping up our season. And we'll be taking a quick break after that because we're moving. We've bought a house. We're going to be doing amazing hard work of flooring and moving in. And as soon as we're settled and everything will be back online for you, and the ball will be rolling yet again. So is that all, sweetie? Mm-hmm. So guys, thank you so much for being with us today on Legends of the Wind. Hope that you enjoyed the story Cliffhanger. And may all your dreams come true. Thanks. Thanks for joining us today on the Legends of the Wind podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell button to be alerted of future episodes. And don't forget, our stories are found here in life and beyond the imagination. Now you can finish your story. Keep dreaming, keep believing, and we'll see you again in our next episode of Legends of the Wind. Audiobooks and merchandise are available at legendsofthewind.com. Go and check it out.